Alright, fuck it. This is how I built a 50k MRR SaaS funnel from scratch. Now, if you're anywhere from 10 to 15k to 20k MRR and you're stuck, but you want to grow to 50k, 70k, at 100k, or you just want to 2x your MRR, then this is a video where I'm going to be showing you an MRR blueprint on how you can actually do that. Because the thing is, most SaaS founders think that building a funnel is all about getting more signups, but the thing is, if you're already at 10 or 10k MRR plus, you chances are already have a sales and a sign up funnel, but you don't really have a product funnel like this, or maybe you think that you have a product funnel, but it's not really been optimal, which is why it's stuck, and which is why your conversion is shit. Your product experience may be dog shit, your conversion may be dog shit, and that's what this video is going to be covering about. Because a funnel, this is a funnel that's gonna be taking your users from sign up and to make them into paying loyal customers. This is also gonna be a funnel to optimize on conversion and retention so that you can be more profitable in marketing. This is also another common mistake that founders, developers, builders make, is that once you actually were to ship your product, you go straight into marketing. Now that may not necessarily be like a big problem, but you see, the issue with that is most technical founders would realize that they have no marketing skills at all. So once they ship their product, they would go all in into marketing without realizing that you are actually bringing traffic to a product with broken systems. You're doing all this marketing, whether that being organic or paid media. But what's the fucking point if you're actually bringing all this traffic, all these new signups, when they're just gonna churn anyway, when they're not even gonna convert into paying customers? So I mean, in this video, I'm just gonna be showing you the exact blueprint that I use for my clients to fix their broken funnels and to actually grow, to actually scale to your desired whatever MRR, so that you can actually reinvest that money to make more money into your SaaS, or you can just take that money out, then spend it on whatever prostitutes or whatever your desire is. Now, speaking of clients, this is basically one of a video that I created a while back, me breaking down a client of mine on how I basically help this simple data linking software to make 19k in MRR well within 3 to 4 months. And this whole 30 minutes video that you see here is also a breakdown on how I'm gonna be making them way more money in the future, in the long run. So there's just some social proof that I have. If you actually want to see how this works with an actual SaaS product, then take a look at this video. And my whole YouTube channel itself is kind of like my portfolio and my case studies. So you can also check out my other YouTube videos if you're curious to see how it actually works. Which is why I'm kind of excited to show you this funnel blueprint you see here. And yes, I'm gonna be going quite in depth from choosing your plan model, which comes down to three things, which is your freemium, trial, and paid. From your sign up flow to your first value moment, to building habit loops, to your feature limit caps, and to your paywall. So this is a funnel blueprint straight from choosing what model to go from to your paywall. And speaking of which, we're going to be going through the first thing, which is to choose your plan model. Step one is to actually understand, like, what is your product really. There's two ways on how you go about this, and that is to discover like one line, what is your product definition. And then the another part of it is to actually understand in one line, what is your core value proposition, not one, two, or your other features, your main core value proposition. How are you getting your users from A to B? What do you specifically help them with? An example could with that is, let's say a definition for a CRM could be, we're building a CRM for quant traders. That is just an example, kind of vague, but that's just a one line product definition. Of course, you should be going more specific on what you can actually help your ICP with. And then following up with the one line core value is, let's say an example could be, see your entire pipeline in one dashboard. And now step two is to choose your weapon. There are two types of marketing angles to go from. That is the red ocean, which are just mature markets, and this that tend to have a lot of customers, which is not really a bad thing or a good thing. It all depends on how do you actually position yourself in market. Now, when you go to the red ocean route, this is when you would want to choose whether to go on a freemium or free plan. And then when it comes to the time to value, if let's say your time to value is under 10 minutes, this is maybe recommendable for you to go on a free trial. And if let's say your time to value is long, like more than 10 minutes, or it actually requires users to actually build something in the UI. And if it actually requires users to form habit, then maybe you should actually go with the freemium with limits. And then on the contrary to a red ocean market is a blue ocean market. This would tend to be fresh market, fresh product in a new market, something like that. And when you wanna if you want to go the blue ocean route, you gotta have demo calls and tutorials to educate them. Reason being is because you gotta understand this is a fresh market or a fresh product, so people would they're typically not used to whatever you're selling to. Either that or your market isn't really familiar with what you're selling. Which is why having these demo calls and tutorials to educate new users makes a lot of sense. And once you have that, then you can actually add self-serve sign up once people already know what your product is. Self-serve sign up, in case if you're wondering, are basically a way that users can sign up and then start using a product without talking to the sales or support team. An example of that could be, let's say, Slack. Slack have a thing where when you click try for free, you basically just use it immediately. This is when you don't need any form of like tooltips or any demo calls or tutorial videos. When you just get into the UI, you immediately know how to use it. So that's what I mean by a self-serve sign up. All right, cool. So now moving forward, after choosing the payment model, we are gonna go straight into mapping the onboarding path, which is the sign up flow right here. This is where we're going to be building the linear flow all the way from the sign up process till the first value moment. And step one, of course, we're going to be going through the sign up surface. This is like a non-negotiable for every SaaS sign up process to have, and that is an SSO option for this to have Google and Apple a non-negotiable thing. It is a very common thing, which is also a common mistake for builders for products to only have Google. Just have Google, and maybe you may have the manual option to sign your email, but there's one thing that you always miss out on always, and that is to just you don't have Apple as a SSO option. And this is a non-negotiable because think about it. How many people are using Apple products? For example, right here, right now, I'm using a MacBook right now, and I'm using an iPhone, which means I'm attached to my iCloud account. How many people do you think would be would attach all of their email accounts to their Apple account? So this is again having Google, that's like a no-brainer, but having another SSO option, which is Apple, are non-negotiable. Think about how many sign-ups opportunity that you'll be missing just because you don't have Apple as a SSO option. So dude, I'm telling you, for you to just have Apple and Google right here, your sign up rate would drastically increase just by having these two. And then so moving on, step number two is segmentation questions. Now this is an optional step, just to clarify, because this is more for your internal data. It's not really for value delivery. It's really meant for your own good. And when it comes to segmentation question, that could come from like asking your users where did they actually learn about your product, where did you hear you guys from, and then maybe something about the product, about what features can they not live without. I mean, the questions is up to you. You can basically just ask whatever questions that is necessary, but this is just the things to keep in mind. Make sure to only have under 3 questions and make them to be all optional. That's quite self-explanatory. When you have more questions, then that brings in more drag, more friction, and the sign-up completion rate will be lower, of course. And also another way to combat that is to show progress bars. A progress bars to show how many questions there are and what questions there are at. It's important for you to kind of be transparent with how many questions there are, because when a user were to see on the top right hand corner how many questions they have, let's say there's only 3 questions and they're on their second question, it's more easier for them to go through with it rather than them being blinded on how many questions could there be. And also another rule principle for you to have is, remember this principle, a rule of thumb, and that is to only ask questions if it's low to zero friction. If the question requires them to think too much, for them to kind of actually dwell upon and think, is it this option or that option, then it's either they get rid of it or just replace it with another simpler questions to answer. And then another thing which is important to note is to only have clicking options like this. Notice how when it comes to segmentation question, you do not want to have open-ended questions, like multi-purpose sort of questions. Maybe just get them to just select some options or just some checklist for them to select one another, so that it's easy for them to just get through with it. And yeah, I guess I mean, even on your end, it's just way easier for you to collect data. And then moving on to step number 3 is, now when you arrive into the main UI, this is when you get through the quick setup, and there's two ways on how you go about this. Once a user were to get into the UI, and if you want to show them a value immediately, then what you can do is basically use some fake sample data for users to see how it actually looks like when they're actually working in your UI. And this sample data can be, it can be easily edited, can be deleted by them. The whole purpose of this sample data is just for them to visualize themselves on how it looks like to successfully work in your feature. So an example of that could be, let's say, a CRM. Maybe in the CRM dashboard, we can show 3 fake deals already in the pipeline. This can be ACME context of a demo sample of fake people that you add into the pipeline, so that they can see how it looks like, and so that they can edit or delete it as they please. And when this happens, of course, they get value immediately, because you're basically getting users to use that feature without them watching a tutorial video or them going through a tooltip. They're basically, it's like a Lego set, where you're kind of giving them instructions, but you're letting them to be hands-on. And then another way for you to do the quick setup is, let's say you need the users to input data in order for you to show value. And if you want to do this, please, for the love of God, only ask for one thing in the UI in order for them to complete the core setup. And by that one thing, I meant by, let's say, an example, a scheduling booking software like Cal.com or Calendly. Maybe that one thing you want that users to input is maybe the availability of your schedule. And otherwise, let's say a CRM. Maybe that one thing can be to add the first contact in the CRM dashboard. And let's say, if another example, project management software, maybe you get them to actually create the first workspace, or even to name the first workspace. Now, these are just examples, and ideally you would only want to keep 1 or 2 quick inputs, because you don't really want to overwhelm them, right? Bear in mind, your users just got into the UI, so even for you to get them to input their own data, you gotta do it quickly, and gotta do it in a way that doesn't require too much mental cognitive overload. So which is why you would only want to have 1 or quick options at max. Now then, you might be wondering, for those of you who already have a quick setup, which one is more optimal for you? I would say whatever gets your users to, oh, I see value in this product, fastest wins. And so step number 3 is the first value moment. Now, when it comes to the first value moment, what it basically means is you would want to deliver whatever you promise in your landing page or in your marketing, for it to be congruent to the actual value in itself, into the UI, into the product. Maybe the way on how you position your CRM is a way to see your first deal in the pipeline. Then you better be sure that that is what they get as the first value moment. These are just some examples, but the main message here when it comes to the first value moment is, it has to be congruent, and you got to deliver the promise from your marketing and your landing page right here. Now, of course, when we're talking about first value moment, we gotta know how to measure your time to first value. And you do this by asking yourself these 2 main questions. How many steps does it take for users to get to your first value moment? and how many minutes on average does it take an average user. If let's say it takes them average on 15 minutes, which is incredibly long, by the way, especially when we're talking about first value moment. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or anything huge. You just want your users to to experience a quick win, so that they have full trust and belief that your product works. I would even say, like, even if let's say your time to value is more than 10 minutes, that in itself is quite long. So if your time to value is more than 10 minutes, then of course you would want to, cut steps. Either you eliminate steps or you overlap some steps to combine them into one thing. So on the contrary side, if let's say your time to value is under 5 minutes, this is probably when your TTV is quite optimal. And this is when you don't want to optimize on it. I see some people, some founders where they really try to squeeze so much and to make the time to value really short. And the mistake that they end up doing is to over optimize it. Then they actually start to remove things that are actually necessary. They made a mistake on removing things that users would actually need, and you don't want to do that, right? Like the famous saying, if it's not broken, then don't fix it. Okay, so now we've mapped how the onboarding path looks like and how to actually deliver the first value. This is when we actually get into building the habit loops. Step one is to map the habit loop. This habit loop it's built by these three sequence: trigger, action, reward, and this is how it looks like. For example, here let's use a primary use case of sharing booking link as a first value moment. And let's say the trigger to want to use this shareable booking link feature could be that a user would think, hey, I need to book a meeting with someone. That's the trigger that they have. And then so the action is they open the product, they copy the link, and then they paste it. Just like these softwares like Calendly or Cal.com, that's literally how they operate. And then the reward is accomplishment. The purpose of the reward is to basically get a user to a point of a dopamine satisfaction so that they feel some sort of a positive emotion. In this case, accomplishment, knowing that users can book appointments with them now. And when they actually get to a reward phase, this is when frequency happens. When they're rewarded, they feel a sense of fulfillment, completion, progress. Then this is where the loop forms. And that frequency, ideally, of course, you would want it to happen like weekly or daily, so they keep on using your product over and over again. And of course, when that happens, this is basically just like a no-brainer. Of course, you would not want to have zero friction. Your friction should be near zero. Do not drag them into any point. You just want to get them on this smooth flow of trigger, action, reward, frequency, and repeat. So then the pattern you notice here is number one, loop completion. When they were to complete the loop, well, I mean they get immediate dopamine hit. This happens when value is provided, and that value provided when they complete this action. And next thing you notice here is repeated loops. And the next pattern I want you to recognize and even apply on is the data and usage would be accumulated, because when we're talking about frequency here, right? When the usage frequency keeps on accumulating, keeps on, increasing and increasing, the switching cost for your users to go to a different competitor would grow, because there's more resistance for them to choose other people when, repeated loops are being taken place. When the frequency of them using this feature keeps on being accumulated, then it's way too much friction for them to move to a different product, which means retention will be higher and they won't churn. And then lastly, the last pattern is more loops. Let's say you actually apply this principle concept of to map your habit loops in different parts of your software, then well, when that happens, then I mean this whole entire flow takes place. And well, all in all, it's just harder for users to leave, and regression would of course increase. And then so moving on to the next part of the SaaS funnel blueprint is hit limits, which is feature caps. Now, to define limits, let's say if you have a freemium, let's say one of the limits could be a feature cap. Now, this could be in a form of, let's say, 100 contacts in your freemium, or let's say 1,000 AI credits in whatever AI tool they have. That is what we call a feature cap. Then the next limit could be the usage cap. Just like my SaaS client Bouncy.ai, they have a usage cap limit of only allowing the freemium users to use one deep link. Only one. And that again is an example of a usage cap. Then the third limit, and then the third limit is the team slash collaboration cap. Now this is when you you know you don't allow your free users to use any team features, to not allow them to share any workspace or whatever. This is the third limit. And now moving on to the free trial limit. Like I feel like the free trial is more self-explanatory, where the main limit when it comes to the free trial is time based, and that could be in the form of 5 days, 7 days, or 14 days. The most common one being 7 or 14 days. By the way, I wouldn't really recommend your time limit being more than 14 days. Let's say like a 30-day free, like a free trial, because 30 days would be too long, and I've seen this happen to other software products where people would start to abuse your LLMs. They will start to abuse your free trial, so which means that your sign up rate might maybe higher, but then your conversion would be dog shit. So yeah, ideally, yeah, keep it between 7 to 14. 7 seems to be the sweet spot. 7 days trial is like the bare standard in the industry. So then, yeah, the strategy to the free trial is to get them activated fast, and then to trigger them into upgrading before the free trial expires. And now let's move on to what type of users would hit the limit and why they upgrade. Now, type one, which is, I would say, tend to be the most common one, which is your solo users, your power solo users. A limit that they would hit is, for solo users, it tend to be feature caps. This could be, let's say, they need more event types, more contacts, more credits. And for solo users, a pricing tier for them could be a standard $15 to $30 starter plan. Now, the second type of users are small teams, and the limits they would hit would tend to be, let's say, collaboration caps. This can be in the form of, let's say, they need a round robin feature, they need team scheduling, and when it comes to teams, the pricing tier, you can charge them higher, like around $50 to $100 per month. You can even charge them per seat, like how many people are they actually bringing in. And yeah, when it comes to small teams who are, they really have a small team of 3 to 5 people, which means they have more buying power to actually afford more seats. And then lastly, the type three of users are enterprise. These are, let's say, big agencies, big teams, which their limits could be more advanced features like integrations, LSAs, and the pricing tier could be a custom. This is when they actually get to call with you, to get on a demo call, and actually get them on a custom price. This is more commonly when they would actually, in order for you to justify a high price, you can also even add a service along the way. And that could be a done with you service or a DIY, like basically whatever justifies the price of the custom. Now, right below it, important thing I want to discuss on is ARPU, average revenue per user optimization. If your ARPU is under $75, which is not ideal, by the way, especially if you're doing B2B, dude, your ARPU should be like at least $80. At least. So if you have a B2B SaaS and your ARPU is $75, this is when you don't want to either raise prices, raise your tier plans, or to cut low tier. For some SaaS, it could be a simple thing that the reason why your ARPU is so low because you start your starter plan at like what, $5, $10. When if you're to actually just start it at least $20, then of course your ARPU are gonna be higher. Now, of course, there are way more ways on how to increase your ARPU, but that's just like when it comes to the pricing strategy on how to increase your ARPU. These are the main two ways. And then if let's say, well, ideally, if your ARPU is more than $100, then this is when you can afford real acquisition channels. This is when you can double down into customer acquisition costs, double down into ads, double down into I don't know, have more UGC or get more clippers, get more editors to create your organic content. And now, ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to this whole funnel breakdown. And if you're curious to see how to actually apply this into your product, because this is just the funnel blueprint, well, like a framework that I'm sharing you, then under the description of this video, there's basically, I would say like a 10, 11 minutes video for you to watch, so that you can actually see how to actually apply this to your own product with the same link under that same VSL video that I'm talking about. Yeah, which is just a VSL, by the way. I mean, if it isn't that obvious, you can also book on a free one-on-one call with me. Here, right here, free one-on-one call with me, where you can basically talk to me one-on-one to see maybe if we're a right fit to work one-on-one and maybe make more money together, you know? But to be fair, if I'm being honest with you, I don't really care if you actually book on a call with me. I'm just here to provide value, and if you've already watched this video to the end, then well, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've done my job into providing some value. This is for those who are just serious about wanting to scale more MRR, and if you don't want to waste time and money and unnecessary resources on fucking bullshit, then maybe hopping on this free one-on-one call with me would make perfect sense. So yeah, click the link under the description of this video and watch the video.